Chapter 13, Lesson 2. Main Ideas. Economics. Wealthy patrons provided financial support to fuel the Renaissance. Culture. During the Italian Renaissance, artists and writers made many advances in the arts and learning. Science and technology. The Renaissance witnessed the development of new artistic and engineering techniques. The Italian Renaissance. Build on what you know. A creative person is someone who is good at using imagination and insight to excel at something or to produce new things. People can be creative in many ways. Some are creative writers or artists. Others are creative with music or computers. Still others show creativity in the areas of math or science. Consider the area in which you are creative. Then learn about an area of great creativity in Europe. The Renaissance begins in Italy. Essential question: what factors helped make Italy the birthplace of the Renaissance? As you just read, Europe experienced a growth of cities and trade, along with an increased focus on learning and human achievement. All of this led to a movement of great creativity in art, writing, and thought. This movement is known as the Renaissance. The term Renaissance means rebirth. It refers to the rebirth of classical art and learning that took place during this time. However, Renaissance writers and artists also created new styles and ways of thinking. The Renaissance lasted from about 1300 to 1600. The Renaissance began in Italy and then spread to all of Europe. Growth of independent trading cities. The Renaissance began in Italy for several reasons. For one thing, Italy had been the center of the Roman Empire. As a result, artists and writers of Italy did not have to go far to revive the styles from this classical period. Another advantage for Italy was its cities. Many of the trade routes that developed between Europe and Asia during this period went through northern Italy. As a result, several large urban centers developed in the region. They included Florence, Venice, and Milan. Cities became the main places for exchanging different goods and ideas. Thus, they were ideal locations for creating new styles and for spreading Renaissance ideas. Florence shines. One of the most important and influential cities of the early Renaissance was Florence. Florence is located in northern Italy along the Arno River. Florence gained importance as a center of banking and clothing production. The growth of banking brought Florence great wealth. By the early 1300s, Florence had a population of around 120,000, making it one of the largest cities in Europe. Among those who made Florence their home were talented artists and writers. Many of those who made notable contributions to the Renaissance lived and worked in Florence. One reason that Florence and other Italian cities produced such influential artists and writers was that the ruling class actively supported the arts. A wealthy merchant class developed in many Italian cities. Many of its members became influential leaders. For example, a powerful banking family, the Medici, ruled Florence during the Renaissance. The Medici and other wealthy families became patrons of the arts. This meant that they encouraged artists to create and supported them financially. Such support enabled artists to work full-time on creating their masterpieces. Advances in the arts. Essential question: in what areas did Renaissance figures make notable achievements? Renaissance artists broke from the past in several key ways. During the Middle Ages, art and literature often dealt with religious matters. Renaissance artists focused on portraying humans in realistic ways. In addition, Renaissance writers and painters experimented with new styles and techniques that resulted in unique works. Many of these works are still celebrated today for their beauty and realism. New techniques. To be sure, Renaissance artists continued to portray many religious subjects, but these subjects were shown in a more realistic manner. To accomplish this, Renaissance artists moved away from the flat, two-dimensional style of painting that characterized medieval art. Instead, they used a technique known as perspective. This technique produced the appearance of 3 dimensions in works of art. As a result, they looked more realistic. Perspective in art. To create perspective, artists run parallel lines away from the viewer until they appear to meet at a spot on the horizon called the vanishing point. Drawing people in the foreground larger than those in the background helps to give the painting a 3-dimensional appearance. History makers. Leonardo da Vinci. Aspects of Da Vinci's most famous painting, Mona Lisa, remain a mystery. Critics continue to wonder what the woman with the slight smile is thinking. Even more mysterious is the fact that Da Vinci painted the work for a wealthy merchant, but kept it by his side until his death. Michelangelo. Michelangelo was known to eat little while working and sleep on a cot near his painting or sculpture. His famous painting on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in Rome consists of a series of scenes from the Bible. It took him from 1508 to 1512 to complete the work. Leading figures. 3 artists dominated the Italian Renaissance. They were Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael. Leonardo da Vinci was born outside the village of Vinci, near Florence, in 1452. He was trained as a painter. However, he excelled in several subjects, including astronomy, geometry, and anatomy. As a painter, he created many masterpieces, including The Last Supper and the Mona Lisa. Michelangelo De Bonorati Simoni was born in the Italian village of Caprese in 1475. He was trained mainly as a sculptor. Michelangelo completed many great works, including the sculpture Moses for the tomb of Pope Julius II. The works of Michelangelo were known for conveying intense feelings and portraying a sense of power. One of his greatest masterpieces was not a sculpture, but a huge painting. It was painted on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in Rome. Raphael was born in Urbino, Italy in 1483. As a young man, he moved to Florence. There he studied the works of great artists, including Da Vinci. One of Raphael's most famous works was titled The School of Athens. Other influential artists. Other Renaissance painters made their mark on the movement. A painter from Venice named Ch.13 used bright colors and broad strokes to set his work apart from other artists. He produced several masterpieces, including Crowning with Thorns. Sandro Botticelli was a significant painter from Florence. His works are known for their delicate colors, flowing lines, and overall poetic feeling. His paintings were generally not as realistic as those of other Renaissance artists. Architecture and engineering. The Renaissance also witnessed breakthroughs in building techniques. One of the most influential architects of this period was Filippo Brunelleschi. He is perhaps best known for designing and building large domes for churches. One of his most famous dome cathedrals is the Duomo in Florence. He also developed techniques for raising construction materials onto various structures and buildings. Renaissance writers. Writers broke new ground during the Renaissance. Like painters and sculptors of the time, writers focused on portraying the real life of individuals. An Italian author named Dante Alighieri wrote many poems and non-fiction works. His greatest masterpiece was the long poem, The Divine Comedy. It focused on spiritual development and life after death. During the 1200s and 1300s, many European scholars preferred to write in Latin. However, Dante often wrote in Italian. Influenced by Dante's example, other Renaissance writers also began to use their native language instead of Latin. Cervantes. Many great literary works were produced during the Renaissance. Among the notable literary figures of this era was the Spanish writer Cervantes. His most famous work was the novel Don Quixote. It tells the story of a landowner who imagines that he is a knight and goes on many adventures. Machiavelli. Another influential writer was Niccolo Machiavelli. In 1513, he published his most famous work, The Prince. The book takes a realistic look at the world of politics and analyzes how to gain and hold political power. Life during the Renaissance. Essential question. What groups made up the different social classes in Renaissance Italy? The Renaissance benefited mainly the upper class. In general, only wealthy people had time to study classical texts and examine humanist ideas. Most members of the middle and lower classes were not well educated. As a result, most of them did not take part in Renaissance activities. Over time, however, Renaissance ideas gradually spread to more of the population as more people became educated. The upper class. The upper class of Renaissance Italy consisted of nobles and wealthy merchants. The men of this class worked to become sophisticated and well-rounded. They learned to appreciate Renaissance art and literature. They also sought to master the various fields of classical study. Their goal to achieve greatness in many areas. Today we refer to a man who excels in many aspects of life as a Renaissance man. Upper-class women also sought to become well-rounded. Many of them received an education and developed an appreciation for the arts. Some became accomplished artists and writers themselves. The Italian poet Vittoria Colonna, for example, emerged as a notable and respected Renaissance writer. She exchanged many letters and sonnets with Michelangelo. However, women gained few social or political rights during the Renaissance. Wealthy women mainly stayed at home. They went out only to the market or to church. Their main duties in life remained overseeing the education of their children and supervising servants. Other classes. The vast majority of people in Renaissance Italy were not wealthy. Many were middle-class citizens who made a modest living as tradespeople or as merchants. An even larger number of people were poor. These people made up the lower class. They often worked as laborers. The ideas and breakthroughs of the Renaissance did not reach most of the poor. However, the movement did spread. In the next lesson, you will learn how the Renaissance gradually moved north and influenced the rest of Europe. Lesson summary. The Renaissance first developed in Italy, which was home to large and thriving cities. The Italian Renaissance gave rise to great achievements in the arts. The Renaissance influenced mainly the upper class of society. Why it matters now. The artistic and literary styles that emerged during the Renaissance continues to influence society today.